Hey, what's up, nerds? Paul Conti back with another little free people battle report. This time, once again, playing against SKAVEN, same opponent as my last battle report against the SKAVEN. 2,000 points, rolled up scenarios this time from the General's Handbook. We got Blood and Glory. So this one is in preparation for a tournament we have coming up. So this is prepping a tournament list. This is the list that I was running that evening. Free Guild General with Reckless and Relic Blade. Valton, Battle Mage with Wild Form and the Talisman of Blinding Light. Luminarch of Hysh, Celestial Hurricanum. For my battle line, 2 units of Free Guild Guard with Sword and Shield, a unit of 20 crossbows, and then I'm running the Brotherhood of Knights Battalion with 2 units of Demigryphs and 2 units of Empire Knights. Basically, the idea is that I'm going to use my battalion units as pretty heavy hammers to go after my opponent. The Free Guild Guard are really there mostly to capture objectives. Rest of the list is basically various different synergies, and then Valton, I wanted another really strong hero to have in the list that was kind of fighty, just in case we roll up. Why am I blanking on the scenario? 3 places of power. I wanted another hero in the list to be able to hold objectives in that. Is my opponent's list. Running SKAVEN, he was running the Verminous Claw Pack Battalion. His general was an Arch Warlock. I'm sorry, his general was actually Tretch Craventail. He was also running an Arch Warlock and a SKAVEN Warlord, both with the Crown of Conquest. A SKAVEN Assassin that was hiding inside a unit of Gutter Runners. A Screaming Bell. A unit of 40 Clan Rats. Warp Fire Thrower Weapons Team. 2 Poison Wind Mortars. 2 units of 10 Clan Rats. A unit of 30 Storm Vermin, that unit of 5 Gutter Runners that were hanging out with the SKAVEN Assassin, and then a Warp Lightning Cannon, and of course the Verminous Claw Pack Battalion. His list, I think, was going for having his big unit of 40 Clan Rats and his big unit of 30 Storm Vermin really having strength in numbers to hold on to objectives, and then using the Crown of Conquest and various other buffs to power up those 2 units and make them always immune to battle shock. It's sort of a top level look at his list, and of course using the shooting and all of that to hold things off and keep the list nice and balanced. Definitely like this list a lot. As you'll see, it just kind of has some weaknesses to some of the things that I was running in my list. Anyway, our board pre-deployment, we ended up rolling up a ton of terrain, and of course we threw big pieces of terrain on the board just to make it even more crowded. So there was a lot of busy stuff going on the board. You'll notice though, from this picture's perspective, really it's off to both ends of the board. Most of the terrain is really clustered in the middle, and to the outsides is kind of naked. I ended up winning the roll and choosing, from this picture's perspective, the far side of the board to deploy on. This is our first picture of deployment off on my right flank. I've got some Empire Knights all the way off to the right flank. Right next to that building is one of the objectives that my Free Guild Guard are hanging out on. To hold that objective, I've got my general next to them, also on this right flank. Both of my units of Demigryphs, I went really hard off to this right side. So what basically happened was I was deploying pretty conservatively, and my opponent dropped a few things and then dropped his entire battalion all at once so that he would be able to select who was going first. So he deployed really heavily off to this side, so I responded in kind with all of my Demigryphs going over there, along with the Celestial Hurricanum and the Luminarch of Hysh joining them. And you'll see here, into the center of the board, I've got all of my crossbowmen up on top of that little plateau. Um, on my opponent's side of the board, you can see that off to the right-hand side, that's that unit of 40 clan rats. He's got all of his characters hiding behind that plateau, along with a weapons team and a unit of 10 clan rats. His screaming bell is up on that piece of terrain surrounded by the unit of 30 storm vermin. And then he went really light off to the opposite side. Look at that right now. I also went pretty light over here. More to the center, I had my battle mage who had wild form. My free guild guard on the other objective in that forest, along with Volton, and way off on my left flank, I dropped some Empire Knights. So the idea that I really had here on this left flank was that I wanted to just fly around and kind of catch them from the back with Knights and have those guys just hold the line basically on that objective and hope they didn't get shot off. He put a lot of shooting off onto this flank, but really most of his army was off to the other side. And he deployed his gutter runners and his SKAVEN assassin off to the side to be brought on as reinforcements later. So this is just sort of another picture, just to get a clearer shot of what was going on here. Actually, this is starting top of turn one. He moved his screaming bell off to the left a bit and moved up those storm vermin. They were not just standing up very well on that piece of terrain, so they just kind of ended up in a pile. He got some shooting off. He shot at my wizard and got a couple of wounds on him with a warp lightning cannon. Over on this side, that was really all he kind of did. He kind of hung back on his turn. Top of turn one for me, I moved my knights up on each flank and advanced my demigryphs forward. My one of my wizards cast a mystic shield on the front group of demigryphs because I figured they were probably going to be taking a charge pretty soon and I wanted to get them protected. And I moved up my celestial hurricanum and my luminarch of Hysh so that they'd be able to take some shots from where they were, which was actually really successful. And I'll get to that in a second. Here's the rest of my movement over on this flank. Volton, I got wild form off on Volton, and I moved him up along with the knights to start going after that left objective. You'll see over here what's missing between my Celestial Hurricanum and my Luminarch of Hysh. I took out his Arch Warlock and his Tretch Craventail on turn one, just one-shotted both of them, which was pretty huge for me at this point. So what that really did was stop a lot of his synergies going forward and really diminished his ability to give any of his dudes inspiring presence, which was something I was really concerned about. I was really hoping to get most of these rats off the table with Battle Shock. So it's looking pretty positive at this point that I would be able to do that. That pretty much ended this turn. Nothing else really did anything. It was really just kind of a turn of positioning. Top of turn two, my opponent got the top of turn two, took down one of my knights on the right flank and put a wound on another one with, I believe that was one of his poison wind mortars that got that off. He also got some shots off onto my Luminarch of Hysh, which really diminished its power considerably just by having those wounds put on it already. Going from its shooting attack being 6 damage to D6 damage is a pretty huge deal. Over here, he moved that Screaming Bell up to get in position and try and charge on Volton and that group of knights that were advancing on that end. In the middle, he advanced up all of his storm vermin to, as I expected, try and make a charge on my center area. On the right hand side, he attempted this long charge with the clan rats into my knights over here and failed. Over here, he took out a bunch of my crossbows with some shooting, which was a pretty big deal. I ended up losing another 5 or so of those to battle shock at the end of the turn. So that unit really got dramatically decreased in power pretty quickly here. You'll see over here, that Screaming Bell attempted a charge and failed as well. So he was not doing so hot on his charges for this turn. He did make this center charge with the Storm Vermin, however, which put a hurtin' on me pretty early. He did manage to take out one of my Demigryphs and put some wounds on another one, and I believe he got some wounds onto the Celestial Hurricanum as well. But over here, those clan rats, again, they did not make their charge. So this is what things looked like after combat. I killed off quite a few of those clan rats, and then some more of those. I'm sorry, not clan rats, those storm vermin. Killed quite a few of them. And that ended up ending his turn. You'll see that there's not a lot left. So, bottom of turn 2 on my turn here, this is a little bit further along. This is more into the charge phase after movement. I moved my Empire Knights all the way over to the flank of those clan rats, that big pack of 40, and charged them in the flank. My goal there was I wanted to draw them away from that objective, as well as just trying to kill off as many of them as possible, because they were just going to be in the way. I retreated those damaged Demigryph Knights off to make a charge on the next turn, advanced my general up more into a more advantageous position to get, inspiring presence or hold the line onto other units that were more on the front lines later on. I made a charge into the Storm Vermin with my healthy group of Demigryph Knights, and that's going to put a hurtin' on them. You can't really see it too well here, but I kind of retreated away my Celestial Hurricanum and my Luminarch of Hysh. They got some shooting done, took down a bunch of those Storm Vermin, so that group is really not so large anymore. Off on the left flank, I got my charges into that group of clan rats that were on the left-hand side, along with Volton. They're going to make pretty quick work of that. Going to combat on the right flank again. Managed to take out one of my knights before they got into combat, but they ended up taking out a whole lot of rats with them. Demigryphs get them down to 4 of these Storm Vermin left, which I was pretty happy with. Got 3 wounds on one of those Demigryphs, but at this point I've pretty much cleared out and controlled the center apart from those. And then over back on the left flank, meanwhile on the left flank, I totally took out that group of clan rats as well as the Poison Wind Mortar that was hanging out there. So that objective at this point is pretty well secured for me. So my left flank is looking really good. My right flank is still in progress. So here we go. Those clan rats start going down to battle shock and all of the damage from the charge. Took down a whole lot of them. Certainly didn't take all of them down, but as you can see, there is maybe 15 or so of them left, which was really helpful for me. And you can see that little barrel up in the upper left-hand corner next to the die, that is the objective marker. So I've got those guys nice and far away at this point, which is really what I was going for, trying to draw them off to the right flank. And in the center, with shooting, I managed to wipe out the rest of those storm vermin, leaving my demigryphs to advance up the middle. This actually, at this point, I just wanted to point out that now that I'm talking about shooting, I won initiative on the top of turn 3, which was really the big turning point of this game. It let me have double turns at a pretty critical time. I was able to get rid of those storm vermin before the movement phase. So I actually took care of that with magic. So those guys were able to advance, and after advancing and charging, that's what the center looked like. I was able to get my general and both units of demigryphs into the clan rats and the warp engineer and the poison wind mortar that were hanging out by that objective. Over on the left flank, his screaming bell conveniently out of the picture, and I just moved Vaulton up to try and do some damage over there. And just got my Empire Knights close enough to the objective to be potentially scoring. And then over on the right flank, I just take out the rest of the models that were anywhere near that right objective and clear it all out, so that all he's got left is his character there, and that is the game. Just kind of another final shot from another perspective. So this game was over in the third turn. I really put a lot of pressure on him on the flanks with my knights on both sides, as well as really just matching his power with my demigryphs going straight up the middle at his unit of storm vermin. What worked out really well for me is that all of the SKAVEN shields are +1 to save if the attacks are only 1 damage. Most of the attacks that were coming at them were multi-damage of some sort. So that really put him at a pretty big disadvantage. He was usually saving on 5s or 6s for most of the game on all of his units. Which, most of the time, if it was against single damage models, those would have been 4s or 5s, which is a pretty big deal. Taking out those 2 heroes top of turn 1 was a huge advantage for me as well. It really disabled a lot of his strategy by taking those guys down. Everything worked really well for me in this list. I really liked how it went. He did not ever get his gutter runners and assassin onto the table. He had forgotten to bring them on turn 2, and then ended up not having a turn 3 to actually bring them on. They were going to come back up behind my lines to go after the objectives, I believe. But yeah, with that, he was down, maybe like 200 points or so effectively by not having those guys ever come onto the table. I think I got really lucky with my shooting in turn 1, taking out those 2 characters. And after that, I think I was rolling fairly well, and I think he was rolling fairly poorly. Just kind of happens sometimes. I think, just the luck of the dice were a little bit in my favor as well. But certainly I think the strategy that I was using was working really well. And I just really like how this list performed. I like this list a lot. The main changes that are going to be made to this for the tournament coming up is really just changing the artifacts and command abilities. I think I'm going to end up going with a more aggressive build on my general and moving an artifact over to either the Celestial Hurricanum or the Luminarch of Hysh for protection. The other big change is I've been using Wild Form on that Battle Mage, and it just hasn't been that impressive, and there have just been a number of instances where I've just said, man, I really wish I could heal my guys. So that's going to get changed to Life Surge for the tournament. This list has been really super tanky, and that I like it. It works well for me. I like that style, so being able to heal wounds and get an extra 6-up ward save out of that, I think I'll be pretty happy with. Otherwise, as far as the core of the army, the what I'm actually spending points on, I really don't think I'm going to change anything. I'm at 2,000 points on the nose, and I don't know. I really like it. I'm enjoying the list, and I think it does all the things that I want it to do. I've played it in a couple of different scenarios now. A couple of different armies went really well every time I've used it. So I think I'm going to stick with what's working and go from there. Hopefully it works out well. I'm going to try and do battle reports of all of the rounds of the tournament so you guys can see how all of this turns out. But that, my friends, is the game. And I will see you all next time.